The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hey Teddy, have you noticed how little attention science and health issues get in the media?
Totally, Edgar, yet science information is very important.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the Health Journalists Network is here.
How can they help?
They are a group of journalists dedicated to advancing public understanding of healthcare issues through impactful reporting on health and science.
Oh, really?
Yes, they meet up every month with scientists and researchers, policymakers, and activists at the Science Media Cafes. They then relay what they discuss to the public.
Does that benefit us?
Oh yes, very much so. This helps with health and science literacy for a healthy Ugandan society.
Okay. I love getting informed about science and health issues. Health information makes all the difference between life and death. I'll look them up and engage them.
That's great. They are based all over the country.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, and they should be making real impact.
They are empowering health communities through journalism. Journalists can save lives just like doctors.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Bleachers aren't ours. They are unforeseen, but gladly we're back, and with the due honesty and utmost good faith, register our apologies. But we're back gladly. Honorable Awich Pollar was yet to conclude his submissions, and he was trying to mention about women, and maybe some bit of a reminder. I have also heard elsewhere else that any matters that concern sexual harassment, like rape and defilement, women are always very bitter. So when you mention that some person claimed we have made some research and women judgments are quarrelsome somewhere, then I had to relate with that. But I will cross to Mr. Joseph Ochieno to say hello to our viewers and also give you a bit of highlights about what Honorable Awich alluded to. In particular, we are still in the Women Month, if I should say, having celebrated the International Women's Day. Maybe, we could begin from there and give us how your week has been.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
I'm disappointed that we were not able to be here last week.
Sure.
And the unforeseeable circumstances was not of the making of this television network, as I know. I can claim to speak for on your behalf.
Yeah.
But it was a national infrastructure challenge, and so therefore those are credits that go to NRA gains. Number two, on the question of the emancipation of women, Comrade Awich is right generally to put the broader context from a global perspective, because lest we forget, women only got the right to vote, merely the right to vote, in Britain just about a century ago. I think it was even possibly slightly later in Epstein-Trump's America. African peoples, black people in America who lived in America for generations longer than Donald Trump's parents did not have the right to vote until very recently. So you can imagine that in Uganda, until 1958. We did not own this country in Parliament. 1958, 2 years before I was born. And so, it's 1958 that we had to join the Legislative Assembly. That's when it was expanded for African representation. So you can imagine. So the rest of the world can be very cheeky. And you Africans, one of the reasons why I make strong effort to be here on Sunday, rather on Monday evenings, is basically to participate in this kind of conversations and hopefully to also tell particularly young people, young viewers, that lest they forget. Because we fudge our history and in many cases we take the current realities of our lives for granted. And while Comrade Awich in a different context is referring to what happens in other parts of the world, it's also true, yes, that if you consider what takes place outside the boundaries of our country, there are many things very good about this country. But also when you consider some things that happen outside this country, there are many terrible things happening here that many people don't know how we, can't imagine how we live with. So, you know, my political party was founded around suffrage of the African peoples, from voting to politics to representation, up to and including to ownership of this country, leading this country, governing ourselves as Africans. But next to that was the fundamental thing that we, the Ugandan peoples, on this, our country, were third-class citizens. The British, the whites were at the top, the Asians were in the middle, and we, the owners of this country, were at the bottom.
The bottom, yeah.
And we argued as a part of an organized campaign that led to the forming of Uganda National Congress in 1952, that we must have access to this. We must have access to education, free, and we must have access to public services, access to fair wages. Now, interestingly, as Comrade Awich is talking about the inequality in pay for women in other countries, in Uganda actually, that was really never our problem, certainly from independence. It was quite clearly unconstitutional, never happened. The issue is whether or not we got the jobs, the women got the jobs. But what they call Sex Discrimination Act in the UK, I think, was 1973. And race relations legislation was in 1976. So far for some of your young viewers, but very recent indeed. That up to the time when I was in primary school preparing to go to secondary school, people were still being discriminated just across the waters on the basis of their race and then sexuality, meaning gender. And so it was absolutely right, therefore, that at independence we're saying that no, we want to claim these spaces as a country. That is why I'm saying that if this is the case that we fought and we're saying that we want access to all the services, fair wages, access to the rightful jobs as Ugandans, and that at independence we got it, all of us, regardless of whether or not and where the women were. And that's the context I'm trying to give. Then no wonder I am concerned that today my friends in NRA boast about the numbers, which in my opinion is cosmetic. Granted, NRA got a very good opportunity in the last 40 years to do a fast by having a fast vice president, woman fast, prime minister fast, women speaker, and a big number of women in positions, cabinet, the judiciary, others. They got the opportunity to be able to do that, but they only got the opportunity to do that because time came on their side, and two, how long they've been. As early as 1963, immediately after independence, 1 year after independence, the UPC government went on to legislate and then open up girl child education, the emancipation of women education, something I've talked about, and sometimes people can find it boring. But I hope these are important policy conversations that help everybody. You know, so we did that. 1964 education legislation tore apart the nonsense about religion. I think your producers ought to be paying attention to this. Your producers are young, including I know you have a princess here, you know, that legislation that long before, Protestants would not go to a Catholic school, Catholics would not go to Muslim schools, and Muslims would not go to any Christian schools. Now, some of those things actually impacted on children, particularly in this case, young people, and particularly women. Those all the things were abandoned, meaning pushing towards equality. What happened from 64 onwards was fast-tracking at the then existing time of women in education and jobs to begin more headmistresses, head teachers, heads of departments. People like Bitamazire was the net fast-track key of some of those processes. Then people going to foreign services, and then of course my auntie, who then went on to become Ambassador Benedict, ambassador to Idi Amin's in Rome. These are people who then would have gone ahead and attained some of these things. But this is a ambassador law. But Bagai indeed was one of them. But Amin was appointed ambassador law to the Vatican, the Holy See. Today, I will not argue with the numbers.
So your issue is about numbers, you don't see...
No, not at all. I'm saying today I will not argue with the numbers because they're there as real. But these numbers are absolutely tokenistic and extremely disappointing. Qualitatively in politics, and Comrade Awich suggests that he's a Pan-Africanist and is ideologically driven part of NRA, and so therefore, if he agrees with me that our polity and our political values should be really around the concrete material element of provisions, then the right for women, when we celebrate the women's season, and something I've done for a long time, I've organized women's events, particularly in the UK when I was in exile, very commonly women's events, and also African liberation moments for young Africans. You focus on what really is the most important material need of the woman. Good enough, we're going to talk about computer misuse legislation. Do women have access to the justice system? Is it accessible? Is it cheap? Is it easy? Can they easily go ahead and report to the police? What is things to do with domestic violence? Some of those things. But then after that, yes, they go to school. They now go to school. They do the numbers in education. But how many of the parents are struggling? How many of our single mothers do you have struggling with many of these people? And then many of those people who then go on to what are really the needs? The woman, her own health, maternal health. Yesterday, I got a very sad news from a friend of mine, a senior person in NGOs, in civil society. They nearly lost their dad. I think I told the program here. They nearly lost their dad when they spent over 40 million shillings at the Kampala hospital. And this thing basically drained them. And this is a fairly rich family. But then she tells me that they lost an auntie a few weeks ago. And when they went to Mulago National Hospital, the auntie was in a ward in which the women, children, men, basically a mixed ward in which you have to nearly almost step on people from one part to the other. They managed overnight to transfer their auntie to, quote, a private room. It was disastrous because she talked about it in spaces like this, but in this case at a social media forum. Apparently within days, that situation changed. When I returned, I'm concluding, when I returned from exile, my first visit to Nagongora health facility, I went to the maternity ward, which was built by UPC just about 15 years later. I was shocked to find what was a maternity ward was now a ward that had men, women, children. A pregnant woman, I remember a man with an old man with a wound. Basically, this woman struggling to wrap up herself and a little girl who was having malaria around one particular bed, but a complete room. I wrote about it in my Sunday column in the Monitor. That really is the material reality of women conditions in this country. Access to water, clean water, access to medical services, access to electricity, access to transport, access to decent, well-paid jobs, access to housing. On the basis of that, women are predominantly the majority sufferers in this country in terms of material terms. And so it's not yet uhuru for women. The guys that will go to the top are so much tokenistic that I don't know whether the vice president of NRA at the moment, Alupu, has a quarter power that the last UPC vice president had. I don't know, meaning Paul Mwanga. Paul Mwanga was the last real vice president of this country because he had power.
Why do you doubt, why do you doubt her power and authority?
You can go ahead and suggest if it is, but I mean, I leave it for your viewers. You know what I'm talking about. The last Prime Minister, Otemali Madi, the current Prime Minister is almost sometimes a little bit comic. The other day she did something extremely interesting to her credit, that she turned up at a place to check, you know, Ugandans, to check contracts of Chinese or something like that. I found it so comical, but some of the things we've raised before. And she was there with my good friend Musa Ichwero. And Musa told me some of the issues, the challenges that did it require Prime Minister? Is also PR kind of stuff? But grant is neither here nor there. But it tells you you are not doing your work. If it takes you up to today to know that these things are messages that your station, your program has been talking about for years, it tells there's something wrong. So it's not about because a woman not doing the right work, because I know over break we discussed that. But it's simply telling you that, well, these numbers are neither here nor there.
To that rather her competence, so that a prime minister, you know, perhaps you are used to the likes of John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, Otema Almadi, the prime ministers that were up here, and this is now, they call them the field prime minister. Does that also qualify her to be competent, that she lives her pompous life and goes to the drains and goes to the field and shares or shares the experiences of what is going on ground?
And it's a conversation that has been had, and we need to be very careful about it, because it then can easily become sexist. Because while I argue that NRA have been very disastrous, except tokenistic, you know, I don't want to use it as a punch bag for women, because in any case, women are generally competent people. By implication, I'm talking about the individuals concerned. Some of them are tokenistic, but some of them obviously are comedians. And in any case, Mr. Museveni put them there to go and do his fudged job. And the people suffering are not women. The people suffering are all the people of this country, but of course led by a majority of them women. I want to tell you, I've got an interest. My cousin was Deputy Minister of Health in the last UPC government. Teddy Dongo Duka deputized Dr. Kwasebe. Teddy is somewhere out, unfortunately, in NRA exile. But if you compare Teddy, Deputy Minister, and anybody today in the NRA amongst women without prejudice, just look at their composition to see. In any case, take any of these women to have tea with Mama Miri, you'll know what I'm trying to say.
Okay. You see, quite interesting. Honorable Awich Pollar, of course, he's been here and you have heard him, and I will highlight one single word: comedians. Does NRM, in your view, appoint some people, not just necessarily women, who are literally comedians in the eyes of Mr. Joseph Ochieno and some other people? Public, okay. But okay, so did you represent the public? Okay. Do you have comedians in your government?
Not at all. The incident he is referring to is because the Prime Minister left a comfortable office, went to the ground to on spot check what was going on, which should be applauded. But he has chosen...
Yeah, fair enough. And I noted it.
What about the structures?
You see, first on this approach of going to the spot, you know, sometimes it's difficult to satisfy human needs. For example, I can give two quick examples. One, in the song of Lucky Dube, one of the songs, he said, if you keep telling people about something you don't know, they will still hate you. Should you tell them about yourself that you know so much? They'll say you are boasting. Should you tell them about somebody again? They said you are gossiping. You see, three things. You have told them something you are ignorant about, they hate you. You have told them about yourself that you know,
you're boasting.
You are boasting. You told them about somebody.
You're gossiping.
Now this gives me a second example of somebody who was with his wife walking with a camel. The man was walking with the wife and the camel. He said, look at this. Instead of sitting on the camel, they are walking. Then when they decided to sit on the camel, say, ha ha, very unfair, all of them on this camel. Now he put the wife, said, look at this foolish man. Instead of a man being on the camel, it is the wife. Now when he puts him, say, what an unkind man. You leave your wife walk. So the Congress is being that type of a human nature. Prime Minister sit in the office, oh, she doesn't know what is happening. When should she visit the site? Oh, comic. So you leave it to the people to judge. But in our opinion, I think it is good that the Prime Minister visits. Because we have had several times contractors packing equipment and coming and giving even monthly update, progressive report, file on the Prime Minister's desk. Now, if she was to rely on progressive reports filed to her, it will be beautifully filed and the progress is 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, and the thing is not reaching. So I don't see any harm in her going there. And then you leave it to Lucky Dube, sing song, and the rest. Now, but I still want to say this, that to me, I'm looking at women at a macro level, because globally women are involved in production at whatever sector, whether in IT or in agriculture, in factories, in service provision, in medicine, law, and the rest. So what I'm saying is that you can't hold down the wheel of history. It will only be Uganda or NRM who has held that wheel, but the wheel is moving. So I'm glad that we have not held the wheel, it is moving. And I have said some countries have done it. To date, I don't know whether it has been removed. Driving, just mere driving is prohibited for women in Saudi Arabia. To the extent that the women protested and because they allowed them to fly. So they organized an all-women flight from London to Saudi Arabia. And you know how big are those flights? Big Airbuses, Grofa Airbuses, ground floor and upper floor. The pilot was a woman, co-pilot was a woman, the engineers were women, the entire crew, the air hostess were women. Now they flew this plane from London to Saudi. Then they told them, now our husbands are brothers and fathers. So you think we can fly this plane from London to here, but you think driving my car to a nursery school to take my child, I can't. There you are. So we have women compose such a big human force that no sensible government can try to hold them back. You'll be holding the wheel of history. And apart from the numbers that Congressman says, I have already said clearly institutional frameworks. We have for a long time had the position of 1.5 points to enter university. That one has pushed many girls. Do you know you can sit in King's College, Budu? You get BBB or ABB or AAB with Christine. You sit in the same class in King's College, Budu. But Christine already has an advantage over you. So Christine in the same class in Budu can be admitted for law and you will miss law. And it has happened. So we have, so apart from the number, which Congressman says will be tokenistic, we have proved in institutional frameworks, the 1.5 point, the budgetary process, the budget which says, please, in the budget, indicate to what extent it covers women. In provisions in legislation like provision quota is known. So we have tried. I am just happy that NRM has proved to be such a progressive organization that instead of standing against the wheel of history, that history is moving and we have moved with it and even further the speed of the wheel.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Awich. But while you submitted, I had this come in mind and trying to look at the structure of your cabinet with the up-bottom structure, for instance, and you look at the Prime Ministry, where Right Honorable Robin Anabanja stewards other ministries, for instance.
Fishers, other fishers.
You have had your congressman, but what I mean here is you have a Minister for Works and Transport. You have, of course, some other subordinate ministries. why do you consider it prudent that the Prime Minister leaves her office and then goes to Chanja? I think it was dozens of Chanja, Nigeria places, to supervise a road where there is also a district staff that is in charge, in fact, for works. Because if it's Kampala Metropolitan, for instance, if KCCA goes up to those ends, or even Wakiso itself, as far as I know, a district has a minister for works in a district. Isn't that bending so low for a Prime Minister going to supervise a road and quarrels with Chinese contractors?
Not at all. Just to show the importance it is attached.
Okay.
Just to show the importance and the urgency.
Okay, let's take it that way. Now, briefly, I want you to give us your comment. I was watching on some various TV stations some independent MPs having an MOU with NRM. What is it that you people are working on? Were they initially NRM-leaning people who disgracefully lost in the primaries and now you are trying to mend fences with them?
Okay. First of all, the idea of an MOU is based on a foundation that was misconstrued by the Congress. You see, there was a provision, I think even up to Obote too, where you can be elected from a particular party and you cross the floor.
Yeah.
Crossing the floor here means, if I know in Obote's village in Akohoro, I can't be elected on NRM. Or if I know in Nyabushozi, in President Museveni's village, I can't be elected on UPC. I purport in Nyabushozi to stand on NRM.
You win and cross it.
When I reach here, I cross the floor. The same thing, you win in UPC in Akohoro, you come to Kampala, you cross the floor. So, and that was injustice to the voters. It was duping and cheating the voters. Yeah. So NRM then came up with a law saying, should you wish to cross, and this was manifested in the constitution making, which he has repeatedly said in NRM constitution.
Yes.
Saying, please, if you are elected from Obote's village on UPC, come here and be UPC. If you want to cross, first go and lose your seat. However, a provision was left for cooperation, that you're free to cooperate, but not cross. So a cooperation was given, but we have only seen insistence on cooperation for independence. But people ignore cooperation, like for the Honorable Mao Party, the DP. So you're free to cooperate, not to cross the floor. Like you won in Nyabushozi as NRM, you come here, you cross and become UPC. No. If you do, you lose your seat. So that is the framework of this cooperation agreement. Two is that it is true that in the internal democracy of NRM, we are still not perfected. And maybe we shall not reach perfection. We still have challenges in our internal democratic processes, so many people complain. So that some independents are either NRM who refused to contest in primary and straight away took the independent line, or contested, lost, and took the independent. And they said, no, for us, we knew it is the electoral process which was wrong, but I am NRM. So the only legal window is to sign a cooperation agreement, called an MOU. Therefore, and it can go even up to councillor, not only parliament, can go to councillor at a district. So that is what we're seeing. So what we draw out from this is that NRM has more support than manifested in the real flag bearers who were elected. We have more supporters than in the real flag bearer. There are those who are elected who are actually not our flag bearer, but the NRM in spirit. But also that there are some people from other political parties who are willing to cooperate with us. So we are happy that once we get them, they will therefore fall under the whip of our chief whip. Therefore, any policy positions that we shall take in parliament, we shall drive it through, because already we have the big numbers and now we're having bigger numbers. And all those who have signed, we shall go with them to Chankwanzi on the 7th to 15th. So that we show them the methods of work, the revolutionary methods of
ideological
work,
orientation.
and then we make them, teach them ideological clarity, and then we go on. So it is good that this is a clean legal provision, as opposed to cheating the people that you get elected and you cross, lose your seat. But you can cooperate, but remain in your party.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Awich. Crossing to Mr. Joseph Ochieno, there are two specific questions for you. One, why are you, as a whole opposition, that either unconvincing or weak enough not to convince the independents also to have some bit of working relationship? Why is it that the majority of them run to Chadondo Plot 1?
No, Chadondo is so cowardly that for the last 10 years they've held UPC hostage, so we've never had a clear leadership. So in the likely event that I am officially president of the party, with the authority and mandate of the party, you'd see loss of it. I can tell you that, as Comrade Awich says boastingly, and quite fair enough, if it's, you know, that they've got people and things like that. I can tell you very authoritatively, I have many, many people, but I do this for the record. I have many current sitting legislators in NRA who would be willing and available to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Uganda People's Congress in the event that I were president and leading the party and leading part of the wider political leadership, renewed political leadership of this country going forward. So I'm very confident about that. But number two, that said, taking us back, there's an element of a contradiction. I don't know whether Comrade Awich gets it. That actually the constitutional provision, and it happens in many other countries, granted, but partly because we don't get rigorous debates on some of these issues in this country. That's not a blame to any of us here. People don't critique sufficiently the merits and demerits of this. There is a persuasive argument to suggest that in the event that one is elected in a particular political party and they chose to cross, that it's sort of a betrayal to voters, so go back to them. In fact, one of the things that Comrade Awich has just suggested tells you how badly false then it is, that then what is happening with this memorandum of understanding thing is actually a bigger lie, that go pretend that you're UPC or NRA, but really you're just looking for a conduit to go to Parliament and then go ahead and strike a deal with others, and it's neither here nor there. It's still a betrayal to party members, to members. On the basis of the question of freedom, on the individual freedoms and rights of individuals and their conscience, on the basis that party whips are there granted to push their particular party agenda, but also at the same time to recognize that legislators go to legislative assembly as individuals granted representing their political parties or political schools, in this case the independents. But you go there upon your conscience based on the evidence provided and the persuasion being made. You should be able to make an individual case that I'm a member of Uganda People's Congress, I'm possibly in the party cabinet. For some reason I've got a leader who decides to go with the Epstein group, you know, to support war in Iraq on the basis, or in this case maybe Iran, but on the basis of my conscience, on this occasion I do not agree with them and I'll vote against. That's a very important example. Together? If then that is the case, and I saw this particularly, it happened. It happens in stable democracies, which this country will be once NRA gives way. It's a cycle, Comrade Awich, you know. You need to be able to give away and stay away for about 10, 15 years. You know, you can still come back after another 20 years. That's good enough. But in the event that NRA goes and there is a new formation, hopefully led by UPC with values like this, nothing stops a situation in which an individual member goes into the Legislative Assembly, consistently finds their party, it could even be a governing political party, you know, consistently veering away, say, to the right. Like these guys claimed that they're revolutionaries, they claim that they're left-wing, Then they came into power, started selling off our public assets, breaking our railways, breaking our airlines, breaking our industries, doing deals with people who killed Lumumba, those kind of stuff. It made a genuine leftist in NRA at the time, if they're independent of mind and thought and conscious, and they have nothing to fear, nothing stops them saying, look, this is no longer the NRA that I joined. I don't agree with them. I'm a member of parliament. Not only shall I vote against them, but I'll cross the floor. You know? So in such a situation, if you've got this kind of provision where you're saying, okay, go back, say, to the voters, understandably, but you can actually see how you're confining the individual in question. Both sides have got arguments, and that's all the thing. But UPC, even under the current mess in the last 10 years, we've had cases where we signed memoranda of understanding with certain individuals. I can't name them, obviously, at this time. But number two, even in the recent post these shambolic NRA elections, I want to say for the record that a particular member of parliament who was UPC before, the Akena group did some deals and allegedly pushed him off the primaries. A favorite darling went through as the candidate holding my party's flag. They went for the elections and the individual lost. The former member of parliament who stood as an independent won. I think, I'm told, that member of parliament recently signed a memorandum of understanding with NRA. Now, I don't know the details, but for the record, I've been very busy in the last few weeks on a number of things, both local and global. But I had been actually looking forward to talking, even at my own informal position, with this individual. So that really is a question of leadership, that you talk to these people and sway them in your direction. I can tell you, and I repeat, there are a number of sitting, including new members of parliament in NRA today, who, quite rightly, as Comrade Awich say, just went to NRA to get the ticket because they know that's the only way they can win, but particularly because that's where they go.
What did they say?
You're worried.
What did they say?
Don't worry. It was not very bad. Not very bad. You know, so some people are going to end, they know that's where they're going to get the money. That's when they're going to get the security guarantee. That's when they're going to get the mathematics numbers right, and if it's not sure, they will contact, they'll make a phone call to Tango Doi. Okay, so if that is the way, you know, let the means
justify that. Okay, you have heard from Comrade.
But if you don't mind, if you don't mind, sorry, Comrade Richie, I think that point you raise is very important.
Which one?
No, the point he raised about challenges to the opposition.
Yeah, the opposition.
I think normal political parties should do that.
Yeah, as soon as elections are done, you outsource, you scout out people that might.
You know, I'm not even sure it's even about normal elections, and Comrade is going to be very excited. And some funny people are going to say, now Ochieno is changing tone, changing language. No, I think credit to NRA guys. They so madly want to retain power by any means necessary that now sort of they've got to know, and of course in any case they've got the institutional advantage that when they go to talk to people, people will understand, you know, the people will respond to them because they have money, good power. But any sensible political party should be on the lookout for good people. And any sensible political party, seeing a political leader like Sechikubu being mistreated, you know, should be able to have a conversation with Sechikubu and say, young man, why are you wasting time there? Why did you come to the political party called Uganda Post Congress, which is the political party of your grandfather? After all, I guarantee you a future in this country that, you know, you may actually become a minister, something that that's fight has evaded you. It is
so
it's
policy. Literally work in progress in the event that you were the UPC leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other parties should, and I can't speak for others, and I don't want to be critical, but it's an important point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our viewers, those are submissions from Mr. Joseph Ochieno, and also, as you heard it earlier, from Honorable Awich Pollar. We will, at this juncture, allow all of us to dive into our topical discussion that asks whether or not the nullification of the Computer Misuse Act guarantees unlimited freedom of speech. But I want to use a courtesy headline from the Daily Monitor. This should be for last week, but it had a headline that said, "Freedom of speech wins." But what is quite interesting that I'm going to read three quotations to you gentlemen, and one is from the Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament, and she was quoted on September 8th, 2022, having said the following, and this followed the passing of the Computer Misuse Act. "Honourable members, I can hear some of you say, or rather saying, we are going to court. If you want to go to court, please do. Let's create work for the court." Council, let me read it for the last time, at least for your purposes. "Honourable members, I can hear some of you saying, we are going to court. If you want to go to court, please do. Let's create work for the court." Right Honourable Anta Among, Speaker of Parliament, September 8th, 2022. Another, now this is Right Honourable Anta Among, but then Honourable, the mover of the motion, if I may remind you, that's Honourable Sechkubo. He said, "Tomorrow will be too late."
Sechkubo,
sorry, Sereko. Muhammad Sereko, sorry. "Tomorrow will be too late. Let's enact a law to regulate freedom of speech, to stop harassment of others. The law will solve the problem of fake and malicious information, which has been enhanced by the digital revolution." I highlight digital because we are digital TV and so many of us. And the moment they highlighted the word digital information, Alternative Digital ran to court as the first petitioner. We are on record. We are the first petitioner. So, in the ruling now, what stood out for Monitor publication is what Justice Irene Muriagonja, who wrote the majority judgment on 17th March, she said, "In my view, that these anomalies resolve the question as to whether or not there was quorum on the passing of the bill into law in favor of the petitioners. I would find so because the evidence, in bracket, the Hansard, that was produced by the Attorney General to prove the assertion of the clerk does not show that the Speaker complied with the impugned provisions of the Constitution, yes, and the rules of procedure of Parliament." This is, why I carried this record for purposes of both of you was first of all to ask about the competence of Parliament itself in passing some laws. In particular, when you highlight the quorum, this question of quorum isn't new here. We have an ongoing petition in the Constitutional Court. I think that's Anti-Homosexuality Act. It was also the issue raised. One of the issues was about the quorum. Again here, you look at our Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament saying, "Let us create work." So does that mean that Parliament simply does some things and leave such work to
impunity?
Oh, no, we reach there. All right, Honourable Awich Pollar, share with the public, what is your view in line to the three quotations from three, of course, this is the Honourable Justice, Honourable Member of Parliament, Zereko, Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament.
Yeah, starting with Nsereko. Nsereko is saying that we should
create a law.
We should to regulate freedom. What freedom of speech?
Yeah.
I find it problematic because the mere captioning itself is not positive. And we have had issues At one time, we were going to fight with the entire world because of poor captioning. For example, in the anti-homosexuality bill, some of us thought that if that bill was captured as family protection bill,
Yeah.
would have made a difference.
That's right.
Okay.
So now instead of saying regulating freedom of speech, I could even have said protection of freedom of speech. Then the ingredients would go ahead to state. You could even draft it from a positive aspect than a negative aspect. So I'm sorry that Seriko prefers to call it regulating freedom. That is crude, that is a layman thinking, and that is a layman packaging. And we have suffered with
He's
it.
your fellow land friend.
Yes,
so
we have suffered with it in the
Oh, is he a lawyer?
anti-homosexual.
Yeah, sure. He's an advocate for that matter.
We
Yeah,
have
Seriko
suffered
is.
with it in the anti-homosexuality bill, where we could have simply titled the bill as Family Protection Bill, and we wouldn't have had to fight with the world just by mere heading. So it's the same thing. So if he thinks that freedom of speech should be regulated, then it is up to him. But I believe that we can protect freedom of speech by some regulations or by legislations and sanctions. In that way, we are protecting freedom of speech. Now, on the issue of the speaker,
Creating
and
work for
creating
judges,
work
for
for,
courts.
I can't put my mind to interpret what he was meaning, but somebody would think it was not a statement made in with due diligence, or it was made in a apparent rebuttal to those who were saying what
We're going
he
to
was
court. Yeah, you
against.
pass this law, we're going to court.
So she made it blunt like that, or she was being humorous, with sense of humor. She was doing it with sense of humor.
Dryly then.
But again, if I was the one, I would withdraw that. No, or I would have packaged it differently. You see, Norman, everything has an impact. Even if you drop this thing here down, it has impact on the
Sound.
both on the no on the it pressed the floor, and the floor also pressed it. So everything we say has an impact, including words. So when you throw words around, then you should expect what impact will it have in the consciousness of Norman. If I throw it knowing it will hurt you, then I should be ready for your pushback. And if I'm not ready, then I'm not wise, because I could not foresee that my words would have impact. Now, if I throw the words at you and I don't know, then it means I'm not smart. Now, if I get annoyed,
Because of my reaction.
then I'm naive, because I should have expected. So everything we said has impact. So likewise with the words that we see, we play with, because it has impact on the listener, and it has, it creates consciousness on the other side. Now, if you intended it to hurt, and the person gets hurt and throws back, then be ready for it.
So Parliament
you did
should
it.
be ready for the
Anyway,
consequences.
Eventually they went to court and they got it. Now, on the question of the judge about evidence,
Yeah, quorum.
now the quorum, this now shows that the ruling now did not go to the merits of the matter. It was just because the quorum was not there. It means, therefore, somebody will still have room to bring it back. Somebody who thinks like in Seriko to regulate freedom of speech, or somebody who thinks like Awich to protect freedom of speech, would still introduce this same bill with a different heading, protection of freedom of speech, and in it, in the ingredients, put in these provisions. So, therefore, the judge was right, because I think, I don't know whether they had used audio, video evidence to physically count how many people were there, or how people, if there was any roll call,
Yeah, in the entire ruling, the Constitutional Court highlights and says the rules of procedure of Parliament give the powers to the Speaker to literally, if I may apply the literal interpretation, to either do head counting, like to be sure, because they argued that most of the parliamentarians simply, put their fingerprints into the check-in machines or for that, to that regard, and keep in the canteen or in the corridors of Parliament. And to the land justice was like, the Speaker relied on those who shouted louder, like the eyes have it, and that has been the problem. When the other, the eyes make some bit of louder, not noise, of course, louder voice or whatever it is.
Applause.
Applause. And that's when the Speaker determines who has it or who doesn't. And the land justice was like, it should be intentional.
Actually,
to be
if
sure.
you don't mind, actually.
Yeah, sure.
In normal parliamentary processes and in parliamentary debates and certain straightforward equivalent of straightforward bills where you need a simple majority, it shouldn't matter. And it would be quite commonsensical for the Speaker to see and to know. In fact, in many cases, they tend to know, including, by the way, in major legislations, speakers, deputy speaker, speaker, deputy speaker, and whips, actually, the whips of concern, particularly the governing whip and their group, because they want the numbers versus the other side. So they will normally know roughly who. But when it comes to something like this, which quite clearly you know that you need to have a specific number, or perhaps the numbers are being contested in terms of figures, you need to pay slightly much more attention, and that they didn't. And if it reaches something, a debate for which maybe you need maybe 2/3 majority and the specific provisions, that must be the case. It's quite common sense. You need then to apply what you're saying.
Okay, but the thing is, I wonder why the Congress is not mentioning this. Maybe it is not within your knowledge, I don't know. But if the Speaker decides in her years, she has had more highs, and she rules that way because her years is telling her that.
That's their majority.
The rule of procedure says you members who are there should stand up and you are counted in protest. So you are counted one. So that because sometimes the chair may not hear highs or nines.
No, in fact,
Okay? So people are supposed to stand up and you are counted. If it is found that the number of people who stood up are actually more than the number who sat down, then she's supposed to reverse her decision. She's supposed to reverse her decision. But in some cases, we have had, I think, a situation where the chair rules say, I have it, and walks away.
And moreover, the cohesive assembly, which it is.
When you stand to count and you are not, it doesn't count. But that procedure is there. That should the here not be proper.
Stand up for
counting. Yeah.
But so, Honorable Awich, just in a second, if I may interject. You are one of the senior members in the NRM party. Do you, and more to that, a former judge in UN, an advocate of High Court, a very, very well and experienced citizen in this country, do you ever get room to highlight some of these concerns to your organ? Like, look, this is how we expect our parliament to run. Because by and large, parliament is run by NRM, by and large, from the two speakers. And you mentioned quite important concerns here by saying, for instance, had you been the mover of this motion, you should, you would have titled it differently. Quite interesting. Did you ever have room to share such concerns in your organs and say, look, here we mess it up, or this is a blunder, we will do it this way? And if yes, were you heard or not heard?
So if you choose to say, did you? I would have, I was prepared to answer, do you?
Okay. In particular, this very one. Answers, of course, as an advocate.
If it is did you, I will answer, but do you is what is my concern. Our concern is we expect to get fairly competent cadres who know. And how do we get it? Through a competent and a transparent flag bearer election.
Yes.
2, when they get elected, we take them to Changwanzi, which we are taking them on the 7th.
Ideological orientation.
3, we also expect Parliament to take them through orientation of rules of procedures. So we expect, for example, in the ideal situation, a flag bearer or NRM who is a retired commissioner in the Ministry of Water, for example, or in the Ministry of Education, who has got experience through civil service and uncontested and won, or who has resigned from a good a position which had exposed him, we would expect him to
be of use.
So that the flag bearer would have picked the right person, going to Chankwans would have added, and the induction in Parliament would make him fairly exposed to this. So that is to the extent that the party would rely on. Now, if you're asking, did we tell them?
Yeah.
I don't remember telling them. I don't remember the party. But apart from these procedures that the party thinks, some people have argued that the law, which is saying if you want to go and contest and you're a public officer, resign, some people argue that that law has caught a half of the competent people and has left room for those who have nothing to lose to sail in politics. Those who have something to lose by resigning his position, and yet he has the experience in civil service, he has the competency. Those who have something to lose don't go.
Stay, yeah.
So to a greater extent, the political field has been left to those who have nothing to lose. And that is dangerous.
Does that
so
mean
this would reduce grasping of rules of procedure. It is imagined that half of these people leave Parliament without grasping rules of procedure. Remember the rules that they have been playing in. So it affects the party, but the party tries to do that. So I think that is clear answer to your question.
Okay, so does that mean, in your view, because you seem to suggest that even when the law was nullified, you seem to suggest that you would still bring it back and give it a different title. So does that mean that you are pro-regulating the freedom of speech, or you would rather let people speak in any case?
I think I want to do. You see, what is a law? A law addresses the concerns of society, and society is dynamic and not static. And we would not have been talking of a computer law in 1800, because there was no computers, and it therefore didn't come with its mischief. If we were in the national park, we wouldn't be talking about computer thing. So society's laws are, as I keep saying, a superstructural aspect of society that addresses concerns and mischief in society. So when this mischief continues to happen, it will be you may hold it for now, for this year or the other year, but if the mischief is there, if people keep abusing the computer use, somehow, someday, somebody will come up with a law.
Okay.
Now, and amazingly, it only touches you when you're a victim. Especially people think because you're in government, you use it. But tomorrow, same thing will happen to you, especially Congress who is coming to government tomorrow. Good luck, my brother.
We will.
It makes me, in a book of non-scholar called Babu, who wrote a book, African Socialism or Socialist Africa. Babu in his book was quoting somebody who, before becoming, he was in the opposition. When he was in the opposition, when he had not come to government, he was arguing for press freedom, press freedom. Then the man became a minister. They took study in 3 months. They had given 3 last warnings to these reckless reporters. They said, is this the man who the other day was arguing for freedom of press? Immediately became a minister. I'm sure if you check Mao also could have been in that way. That the other day you were vibrantly arguing for freedom of the press. And immediately you become a minister. In less than 3 months, you have given 3 last warning to these reckless reporters. Is this the same man?
Mao, yeah.
Is this the same man who was arguing for the freedom? So I am saying that laws come to address particular mischief. And as computers come, it comes with its mischief. And therefore, it needs to be controlled. So somehow, someday, whether we call it freedom of management or freedom protection or freedom regulation, but somehow we have to take hold of it. And in any case, even if they fight it from a criminalization part of, you remove it from the penal code books, still the civil rights. So you want, I want to be abusing you on the computer and you sit quiet. You see, in criminal law, I have often said it is not what you do that is criminal. It is what you think. Okay? The thinking. And that is why in the past, the Karamojong who uproots cassava and did not know it belongs to Ochieno, he has not committed a crime. Because by the time he was uprooting, he was saying, this is not me. Okay? Similarly, in civil liability, by the time you throw the word to me, you definitely knew it would hurt me. And it would be now a question of proof that I was hurt. And that is why the enjoyment of rights, you enjoy your rights, but should not interfere with my rights. I have freedom from being hurt. I have freedom to be happy. You are not free to hurt me. You are not free to interfere with my happiness. Once you interfere with my happiness, I will demonstrate to court that you have hurt me emotionally or otherwise, and court will order appropriate remedy. So even if we run away from criminal aspect, the civil aspect will remain.
I think not to be a devil's advocate, but the argument in most of the people's view is that this shouldn't be left in the hands of government to criminalize. Because we know that Charles Onyango Bo versus Ochieno, it was literally the same matter.
Because it was false news.
Yeah, false news. Because for some purpose, we have so many victims that have been arrested, and the DPP puts on the charge sheet that, annoying the person of the president. Because none of us ever knows how fast will Honorable Awich be annoyed. Like, you cannot ascertain whether because anything can annoy you. Someone could write something and you think you have been annoyed. So for some reason, I think the bigger populace is of the view that you let it be in the civil jurisdiction rather than criminal jurisdiction, which I do not know whether that would be your take as an advocate, but also by and large to ask you, do you think, in your view, because you are a user and a consumer of social media content, do you think the public and or other people use or misuse computers?
Oh, people misuse it. Okay. For sure. People tell lies, okay? People tell lies. Why would you tell a lie? For example, the recent case of an SFC officer who died in it was outright lies.
Yeah, I saw some posts.
You see, now, and you think it is okay, let them do it. The man is not a colonel. He's a sergeant.
I saw the photos of...
He's a sergeant. Now they dress him a colonel. 2, this man has been sick of cancer for over 6 years. He has gone to Germany, he has gone everywhere. 3, the alleged act of informing Honorable Chagulanyi was yesterday when the man was bedridden. 4, this man, even in SFC, doesn't put on uniform. Under whatever circumstances, he wouldn't even know arrest of Chagulanyi. Okay? He doesn't. His work is completely different. Even if he was in court, he doesn't. He doesn't put on uniform. He doesn't interface with this. Somebody comes up, dresses the man in a combat, puts him, makes him a colonel, frames that story, and you say, no, it's okay. It's a freedom. Okay. Then you make me feel like the Americans are crying about this. America says they are the champion of rights. They are the world leader of rights, including freedom of expression. But if the Iranians go on the street and demonstrate and express their anger,
they are wrong. Iranians are
not
wrong.
That. They go on the street and they express death to America. I said, no, you are wrong. He said, but they're expressing. So to what extent would you therefore do that? Remember, for the Iranian, they even open on the street. They're saying death to America. And America said, that is wrong. And yet you said, you are free to express. So he's on the street expressing himself by those words. But honestly, this computer is abused. I mean, I have seen somewhere they pick a picture of two girls well dressed. They just remove their clothes and make them naked. Huh? They open them and make them naked, and it's okay. They can get like Princess here. She's well dressed. They undress and post her photo when she's naked. And already in somebody's mind, it's like he has already seen a naked princess. So, the computer has come to help man. But it is true that a lot of mischief of the computer is there, which, as a reasonable society, will have to control it. I want to cross to Mr. Joseph Ochieno, but also, just in a few seconds, are there circumstances where the government itself has abused the computer? To me?
Yeah. And told lies to the public?
No, I don't. Because I don't remember. Because why would it? I have not seen, for example, a situation where government has picked. Which arm of government would that even be?
It could be a different lie.
Would it be intelligence arm of government? Would it be judiciary, parliament? Which arm would that? For example, picking a leader of opposition like Cecilia Gwal and use the computer to embarrass her. I have never seen it. I've never seen it.
Okay, because I wanted to give you some precedents, but maybe for the purpose of this show, I may reserve them. But of course, not reserve them. That's a disservice to our viewers. Because when you see the spokesperson of police, Assistant Commissioner Kituma Rusoke, being on media, for instance, and also on their X handles, and says no one is, for instance, looking for Chagulanyi. But also, previous days, you will see people, in fact, security itself, guarding his home when he's there. So who is lying? Who is telling the truth? So let's cross to let's cross to Mr. Joseph Ochieno.
You see, an abuse would offend a particular person in person. That act must offend. Like the act I'm saying, undressing princess and leaving her naked using computer. That act of say annoying the institution by putting a man a colonel while he's not. So I do not see who would be hurt
if someone lied. If
by saying that nobody's looking for him. And you say, I am hurt. Are you a member of Noob or what?
Okay, let's cross to Mr. Ochieno. Pick it from the three quotations from the Land Justice, Honorable Muhammad Nsereko and Right Honorable Anita Among, and then that will also guide you to respond to what he has said.
Well, he's talked for such a long time.
The reason for which I'm giving you time.
No, but you asked him so many questions that I'm not sure that I am able to go back to it, which I think should be one question at a time, and then we crisscross.
Okay.
It disorganizes me.
Let's go back to that.
But look, if you don't mind, I think that two things. One is that Irene Mlagonja is an absolutely fabulous woman who, on the basis of the conversations about women in positions and women of quality, I would make her my Chief Justice. Mlagonja has had a specific ruling a few years ago, which I will not refer, without prejudice, and it's quite thorough. Mlagonja on this, you see her arguments, to the extent that many of us in opposition, including in UPC, we are substantially tempted by the conduct of some of the judicial officers to actually refer to them as cadre judges. I'm not saying that I'm pushing Justice Mlegonja out of it, but when she's at her best, it's extremely difficult not to give her credit. And this is one of the areas where I think she was quite thorough. So number two, I agree with Comrade Awich that when it comes to framing of some of these, drafting some of these bills, I actually don't know whether some of these people would not have wasted our taxpayers' money going to Chankwanzi, and whether some of these people are not excessively being paid, and so they're now so mad about the money that we give them, which a future UPC government would review. I would actually possibly have members of parliament pay and make sure that some of the monies that is saved from that, maybe up to again 50% of it goes to public services associated with women and children. But Comrade Awich, even if some of these things are private members' bills, in as long as they come from legislators from a particular political party, they would normally have been discussed. And they would expect the whip of that particular political organization
To guide.
to have an idea, to know, and to go through, and so therefore, if you like, possibly to guide. I am not sure actually if, as president of UPC on the 6th floor in Uganda House, and possibly not in Parliament, circumstantially then, that any of our members would be tabling a bill, and I would not be familiar with it, including looking at the draft, including the final draft, not to edit or rather to school it. But it's just a matter of administrative common sense. So the implication here...
But I just want to say this to you.
Yeah.
I don't think NRM can run away from this bill because we are the majority.
Yeah, sure.
Besides, it is our president who is our chairman of the party who has sent. If he wasn't okay
that's
with
actually,
it,
and that's even
he
more
would have
important. That's even more important, yes.
So
yes.
I don't think we can run away from it because we are the majority. If the bill was not in our favor,
She wouldn't have gone through.
thrown
You'd
it out.
have had to challenge it, and not expect
But
to have
also,
voted for it. Yes.
our chairman wouldn't have assented to the bill. So because whether it is a private member's bill or not, he still has to. And the provision, procedure for him querying and bringing it back and rejection is there in law. So I just like to assure you that we can't run away from it.
Indeed, and you, unfortunately, there you risk me making a point that is slightly even much more critical. That is primarily as a result of that the suggestion that some of the legislators may have questionable competencies, because, doesn't apply, shouldn't apply. Meaning that beyond the individual, this is not an individual thing, there's a system. But it's a representation of the breakdown of institutions and systems and maybe quality of education we have, generally anyway. So then next to that really is, again, the bill on, the legislation on homosexuality, and you and I had this conversation. For me, actually, there was no need to have a new legislation. All we needed to have amended just then one of the relevant existing legislation. But two, in the unlikely event that you chose that you want to table a new legislation, you could have framed it differently. As Comrade Awich says, I'll stick to his word. A family bill, family-related bill, a family protection legislation, something along those lines. On this other, you could again just have called it at the time. Again, the existing provisions. By the way, laws on defamation and law on sedition.
The penal code,
Some of these things, really, you could pick these things and run with them, without necessarily creating new bills, new legislation, new controversies for nothing. And then, in any case, since Comrade Awich says it's about the will, the fact that Sereko came ahead and said, we need to break UPC's freedom of speech. So they did. So the intention was by NRA to break our freedom of speech, Comrade Awich. But they could easily have said that, framed something along the line of public privacy legislation, something like that, where in this case the implication links to whether or not you told the truth, told a lie about an individual, a lie about an institution, where maybe if you talk about told an untruth about the state could say that, well, you know, like arguments around sedition, that maybe, you know, you risk causing public disorder as a result. Something along those lines. That said, it wasn't necessary. Absolute waste of time. I have credited Justice Mliagonji. But when I was coming to the studio, somebody saw the flyer. And we're having a conversation, and quite unusually, I'll make particular references, and one of these persons is a lawyer, actually. The person suggests, and this is really important for the public, that I'm happy most of it is in a trash.
Most of these sections.
Yes. A society needs to protect freedom of expression for people to conceive and progress in development, trade, culture, entertainment, and knowledge. Offensive communication is better than silence, and I just quite like that. But like Mandela, is neither here nor there. Leaders must develop a thick skin for it, or resort to civil remedies rather than criminalizing. And I think you're talking about offensive communication and criticism. The Speaker and MPs must stop guessing quorum and ascertain it with mathematical precision, as required by law and emphasized by the court. People charged under the annulled law must be released immediately. Those who are already convicted should challenge their convictions based on an unconstitutional law. I think we do not really have major disagreement there. My thought from another person was that, and this is a young lawyer actually, this is what I can comment on for now, basically based on where you're going. I have limited data on my phone, so you can see the gains. So I won't be able to see you having that wonderful conversation with the nation. But I've shared, yeah. You know, anyway, but this particular individual is saying they are happy that this thing has gone to the trash. For Sereko to have said what he said is really cheek. But for my sister Anita Mong to have made those observations, I think it's actually quite distasteful for a leader of the House. Because the suggestion was nearly like, okay, whatever. It's almost like that young, decent lady from West Nile, Anita.
We have the
you know, we have the Majay kind of stuff. It's actually quite disparaging to the country, whatever it is. Community will always remind us they have the numbers. You can really coin these things, including conversations, in a manner in which you're able to get whatever you get without necessarily causing this kind of rancor. From the Speaker's perspective, then, it is, whether you like it or not, this House, like what the Ochienos say, well, it's basically another assembly for Comrade Museveni. I think as a nation, Comrade Awich talks about this question of civil servants, or people leaving civil servants, leaving jobs in time to, or whether or not people should leave jobs at all, or rather resign their position before going to Parliament. Comrade Awich, this is a nation of 40 million people. So in other words, we have really maybe up to 15 million Ugandans, arguably. You could actually say, even if you argue that there are 10 million Ugandans who are available as a crop to be picked for the Legislative Assembly, which is too big anyway at 500. A UPC government would reduce that to not at least, at the very least, half. But even then, the excuse that the 500 quality people must necessarily come from public services is not necessarily applicable. I think it's the culture, I think it's the character, I think it's the symbolism of the institution. On the basis of what my sister Anita Mong said, it is telling you that actually, if she so choose, so even Anita has got the competence, if culturally she feels that she has responsibility to the nation, and she's taking the office seriously, and that the Legislative Assembly is really a people's house, a people's assembly, together, including with the Sereko, maybe Sereko would not even have considered tabling this bill in the first instance. So I think it's really more about the culture that we face as a peoples. And finally, to use the law and to weaponize the law in order to achieve short-term political objects is basically what these NRA guys have perfected. It is actually not necessary. Freedom of speech is really at the core of growth and development. Freedom of speech goes side by side with the freedom of conscience, the right to vote, freedom of association, freedom for women, and likewise, so therefore, whether or not a nation state is going to grow in which direction, and linked to the data that the young man was trying to talk about. Freedom of speech gives the ability and the opportunity for people to regenerate and to grow and to think. And that is only the freedom and the ability that will allow Ugandans to grow and strategically think long term, so that Trump or Trump's grandchildren don't come and bully Ugandans in 30 years. And certainly that when Iran reaches a particular level where it's able to change the Americans, that young Ugandans can say, if Iran can do, we can also do better.
Okay, I want to give you like a minute so that you can have your closing remarks. But of course, with this question, if you were in government and you're the chief executive officer of a company in quotes now called Uganda, how would you have managed the situation in terms of those that the state considers to be very indisciplined and abusers of the social media, for instance, and who attack and or insult leaders? How differently would you have managed such a situation?
I would use existing, I would use existing legislation. Number two, the note that I actually read, that leadership comes with responsibility. And leaders and those of us in public spaces, we should be, have thick skin enough to be able to let go. To let go. And let me tell you, go back to the archives and you see what newspaper Mnansi and newspaper Ngabo, and I think another newspaper that I can't...
Confidential, even Confidential was kind of, in quotes,
yeah, but I'm just saying actually under the last UPC administration, these papers were quite insulting. These papers were telling blatant lies, and I mean blatant lies. These papers, including another one, there's a particular Luganda publication that used to tell lies about the state, used to sell NRA like hot cake, meaning creating a direct...
Okay. Your closing remarks, I come to remember which part they will here.
So it was dangerously so, but we let them be. UPC government let them be.
So the bottom line, of course, the advice to Honorable Awich and the team is to have that strong skin.
Yes, and have a sense of civility and responsibility and focus it on the delivering on the people. And when the matter of genuine national security comes, there should be there is sufficient laws within that we have within the framework to be able to deal with this. And when dealing with it, please don't go shady like behind the kind of scene. Come out publicly and we shall support you. If there is a bandit like NRA used to be bandits and they're threatening our peace around Matuga, just tell us about them. We shall be on your side because banditry is criminal. That's why we say NRA was criminal. But at the moment, this way, you guys in power. But
okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Awich Pollar, you've heard from your comrade that you had better work on your in quotes, the skin now to be hard enough. You had better be hardened. To so many people consider this law as anti-critiques to the regime because 7 out of the 10 people that have been arrested and or prosecuted are literally those people that have mentioned that so-and-so is a thief, so-and-so has done A, B, C, and Z, so-and-so. What is your take? And we move forward. Now that the law is literally, with so many sections being nullified, what do you think is the way forward? And how can we, as citizens, media houses, continue executing our work, also speaking truth to power without necessarily annoying you as government? Not you, of course. Yeah, sure, yeah, sure. You have, you'll have to use 3, 2 minutes.
Which Congressman raised was about, I think there is some comment about Twina Maje.
We have the Maje.
Yeah, since I came to public space on the television and radio, I think I have cleared that. Because many times I've insisted that NRM has been in power for 40 years. and we would want it for another 50 to make 90.
Okay.
But, and only but, when we meet the aspirations of the people, because it is the people to decide. I thought I have been making that clearly, and I have even said it's not because the amount of tanks we have, not the amount of helicopters, but because we meet the aspirations of the people through a well-researched manifesto drafted and implemented, which covers holistically everything in the country. I thought my consistent packaging that addressed the issue of Maje that we want, and this is what President Museveni says. So I thought I had raised the Twina Maje because I've consistently put that we plead guilty, we want to be in power for long, but under this arrangement.
Not the Maje,
Yes.
not because of the Maje.
Yes. Now, on the issue of a thick skin, I think if there's anybody who is a thick skin in this country, it is Museveni. For a long time, he has been cartoon, he has been said, well, maybe there is some red line somewhere, but Museveni has had a thick skin to many, many things, including being cartoon, being abused on radios and TVs and all that. But then maybe there is some extent to which you can be a thick skin, and they do. Because if you see the kind of freedom that we have, many observers have said you don't get it across in our, where the other OB is in Rwanda. People seem to think that in Uganda,
We are slightly ahead.
it is even exaggerated freedom. So I don't think now you can tell Museveni about a thick skin. He has exercised a thick skin long ago. Some of us have exercised, so thick skin is exercised and many. So others which really personally point at a person, not, for example, the thick skin has been exercised when you abuse the institution. Like, for example, faking that the sergeant was a colonel. Of course, it gives bad image to the army. It gives, but it affects. If it affects a person like General MK, then he will be offended. But for the institution, we have developed thick skin.
Okay.
Now,
Closing remarks will leave here.
my closing remark is that
How do we continue operating and all Ugandans executing the freedom of speech without, of course, annoying you?
what I'm saying is that we should know that we are free to be free, but I'm not free to hurt your freedom. You have your freedom. From this freedom, you are free to be happy, you're free not to be insulted, you're free not to be abused. But if my freedom interferes with your freedom, then it is wrong. So the first instance is we should be responsible. But secondly, if we don't be responsible, then the society will control us at some point.
Are you pro-criminalizing this or rather going civil?
Both.
Okay.
Because even when they have a criminal matter, you can still make a criminal claim. I mean, a civil claim. If you break my head, the police will prosecute you for breaking my head. But I can also proceed civil to get for the damages, the injuries I've got. So I'm in for both. But a development of like technology, a development like computer will come with its mischief. Which mischief the society will address it. It will either be today, tomorrow, or I don't know when, but society will do it.
Okay, our viewers, I have nothing useful to add. I wish to thank you for having kept DigiTalk, and of course to ask you to share this link to the rest of your comrades out there to watch and or comment, and by God's grace we shall have them come next week. I wish to thank you for viewing, and good night.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.